strategically place this webinar a week before March Madness so that anyone who's attending pays attention to us and not their brackets.
Great call, Matt.
Although there is some good Big East basketball going on right now.
Yeah, I got my alma mater today.
The Buffs, right?
Buffs, yeah, CU Oregon. So
yeah, that'll be a great game.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. As far as who we are, thanks again for joining. This is the team at Staffing Engine. This is our first webinar, I think, right, guys? We waited 6 months, so we were all to do our first one. So my name is Matt Dichter. I'm the VP of Sales here at Staffing Engine. Andrew, why don't you do a quick intro?
Yeah, hey, Andrew Kimmel, co-founder here at Staffing Engine and run marketing. And also formerly co-founder at TextUs with some of our other co-founders here at Staffing Engine. So
awesome. I'm Jay Cutler, co-founder and VP of partnerships here. I've been in the industry for about 11 years, 7 on the recruiting side, and then 4 now on the tech side.
Right on. And thanks again for joining us. As far as an agenda of what we're going to cover today, we want to give everyone an introduction into what recruiting acceleration is. We'll start off by talking about sort of what the old way of doing things was versus what the new on-demand way is. We'll define what recruiting acceleration is, because yes, this is a new category. We'll talk about the various channels of how staffing agencies can engage both candidates and clients. And finally, Jay's got a little mini presentation to talk about how you as a staffing agency can deploy a successful recruiting acceleration strategy. So let's go ahead and get started. And our first topic is going to be how things were done previously in the past in the staffing industry and how they're sort of shifting and being done now. And we'll start off with a little dose of nostalgia. And Andrew, why don't you talk a little bit about what we're looking at here?
Yeah, so right here we have the last remaining Blockbuster in the U.S. in Bend, Oregon, which I'm going down to Bend for a snowboard trip with my buddies right after this webinar. So the last remaining Blockbuster is this funny reference that this quote by David Cancel, who's one of my favorite mentors and kind of one of the leaders in kind of the space that we're talking about today, which is he has this quote, which is, "The way we've been trained to work is for a world that no longer exists." And he's really evangelized this a lot of the real-time messaging and conversational marketing in the B2B space. And I think a lot of what's happening there is kind of rolling over into the recruiting and staffing space now. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So Matt, if you go ahead to the next slide, what he really means by what he's saying there is that this old playbook that we've been using for years is really changing. So website forms on an average, this is average for all industries, but it gives you a sense of like how abysmal it is to try to convert people with a form on a website, right? 3 to 5%. And then, once you do convert them, there's an email notification gets sent to somebody, they shoot that person an email or phone call, try to follow up. And, generally this is just a pretty slow process, especially on the inbound front. On the outbound front, emails and phone calls are just tough to get people to answer these days. So, it's really just kind of this interruptive strategy as opposed to being more customer centric. So
it's crazy how fast technology moves. Like you have this like great idea, and then a year or two later, like those statistics seem to go down and down as it's replaced by new ideas and new ways of doing business. And so it's hard for, regardless of what industry you're in, it's hard to always keep up with the latest technology and know the best way to reach your audience, and it changes so quickly.
Yeah, and I think so. This idea that there's this shift that's happened right now, we all now expect everything on demand and on our terms, and not on the businesses, not on your terms, right? And I think the businesses that understand that and are able to kind of reach towards the customer and make it easy for them and make it convenient and just really just be as close as they can and on the customer's terms are the ones who are really going to win in this new world that we're living in now. So the real 2 big mega trends that are driving this whole change are our apps, of course. That's kind of a given. We all were obsessed with this idea of having an app in our in our customers' pockets and just being right there and as close as we could to them. And that's really what started this idea. And actually, that's where my career started. Right out of college, I started a mobile development shop with one of our other co-founders in Staffing Engine, Ted Guggenheim. and we built apps for all kinds of brands and startups and guys with idea, but it was all everybody was just trying to find a way to get closer to the customer. And in one of the projects that we were working on, we were doing an app and it was for this event, and it just wasn't working. And we did 2 years in a row. It just kind of was so on the adoption. And then the third year we said, well, what if we just like allowed the person to text to get what they need to do, get done at this event? And it just took off. And so that was really our first, inclining that real-time messaging and just texting and messaging in general was this big mega trend that actually extends even past just texting. So yeah, that's kind of these are two mega trends that are really driving this on-demand shift. And yeah, Matt, maybe we can talk through a couple of these.
Yeah, I mean, we've
Losers
all
on the shift of the losers on the left and we won't
yeah,
have the other.
losers on the left, but we've all kind of seen this in our personal lives. Taxi isn't as dead as Blockbuster is, but Uber and Lyft have definitely taken the market by storm and dictated a lot of what app development in 2022 looks like. Certainly, Netflix and companies that allow for streaming have won as far as an on-demand audience. And I wouldn't be a very good sales rep if I said that phone and email are dead. I use them both in my day-to-day, but there's no doubt that millennials and Gen Zers who are entering the workforce often demand a different way of communicating. Phone and email is great, but some people prefer text message. Some people prefer online chat and live chat and chat bots. Some people prefer using Facebook Messenger. And it's really up to the recruiting and staffing agency to have all of those methods, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, available, because in such a talent-starved market, if a candidate who's entering the market prefers one of those and you don't have that as an option, you're going to lose out to someone who does have all those channels available.
Yeah, I think just one other point there, Matt, too, if you go back, I think just the idea that the taxi industry could have developed an app, right, and changed the way that Uber and Lyft challenged it, but they just weren't set up to do that, right? And Blockbuster could have possibly like made a streaming service, but that it just wasn't what they were set up to do. And so, just if you're staffing firm just relying on web forms, phone calls and emails, that you're fundamentally kind of digging your heels in and not kind of reaching towards the customer and this on-demand expectation they have.
Yeah, and Andrew, another point there too is that taxi firms now do have these apps, but they were too late, right? So if you wait too long, you're going to be obsolete to the point where you can't really recover from the people who invested in the technology and innovation earlier on. So.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's here in San Diego, there's a local taxi app. The problem is Uber and Lyft were just so much faster to market, and they're so adopted, it's hard for taxis to compete there.
Yep.
Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about the shift towards this on-demand way, I know I kind of showed my hands a little bit earlier, but we're going to talk about the different channels to engage, and this will have a candidate focus, but also applies to clients as well. And Andrew, I know you talked a little bit about your TextUs background, but why don't you give us some more color there?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, myself, Ted Guggenheim, and Mike Hickman, all three co-founders with Jay here that's on with us as well of Staffing Engine, and we previously had founded TextUs. And what I mentioned there about that event that we were doing the app for, and it just didn't work. And eventually, we just realized that text messaging was like a really powerful channel to like enable business to just get done faster, things to be more convenient, and just be closer to the customer. And so we built TextUs that really took off in staffing and recruiting, and that was where we just realized how important it was to the recruiting and staffing world. And so the whole thing was really this first step for us, and now there's now another step that we see. And if you think about this graphic here, on the left, you'd be kind of just starting out as a company. You get a physical location and you allow people to visit you, right, in person. And that's kind of the start of just being up and doors open, right? And then, eventually you have a phone number, and that makes it a little easier for people to do business with you. You can call people, and you get business emails, and maybe now you're even adding automation to that, right? And so, that was really this first phase that we went through of like, you just getting up and being able to communicate and do what we need to do. And I also think then, yeah, go ahead, man.
And if you think about staffing agencies for a very long time, I mean, companies that were started, 30, 40 years ago. For a long time, it was brick and mortar. You'd have a phone number. Email definitely is more recent over the last 20 years. But that first segment of, either visit us, call us, or email us was the way that staffing was done for a really long time.
Yeah. You can almost look at this like a timeline, right? But 30, 40 years ago, people on the visit us in person, and now we're moving towards this chat, message us on the right side. And I think a lot of staffing firms today, I hope probably all staffing firms at least have a website, and I know a lot are adopting the mobile apps. But I think a lot of people are kind of right in the middle of this timeline when we look at it here, and people are starting to adopt texting even more, and it's still a very viable business model to go after. But we're starting to see kind of this early adopter phase of people really adopting the omni-channel experience and meeting those candidates where they are. We expect to see that explode just like texting did over the next year, 1 to 3 years here, and actually moving more into kind of majority of firms are starting to use this. So.
Yeah, and there's no doubt. I mean, there were companies that were providing omni-channel messaging, chatbots, that sort of thing. But I almost think that some of them were too early to market, and the move over the last couple of years that has shifted the way that staffing agencies work to more of a remote or hybrid model. It used to be really easy for recruiting managers to sit in a bullpen and understand exactly what was going on. But now that they have people who are, remote and communicating with candidates and clients in different methods, this sort of omni-channel approach allows for better reporting and better knowledge of what's going on between recruiters.
Yeah. And people are saying going back to the way it was. Well, the fact is we're never going to go back to the way it was. There's going to be offices, but people are going to dictate whether they work in that office or not now. And so the ability to have these, channel capabilities with live messaging is going to be huge as we go forward here.
Yeah, that's almost the point, right? It's the scale of like, you should have all those things. Like if you don't have all those things, you're limiting how close you can get to people essentially, right? Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
And so now that we've talked about the different various methods of communication and channels of communication, our team set out to answer the question, how can we help staffing agencies build and create that on-demand relationship between their candidates as well as their clients, wherever they might be? And that kind of leads us into our next topic, which is defining this new category of recruiting acceleration. And our answer, at least right now, and this is going to be iterative over time, but our belief is that recruiting acceleration, or as my friend Lauren Jones calls it, connecting the dots with bots, is really looking at the recruitment and the sales process as a whole and finding inefficiencies in it, and then using bots and artificial intelligence to increase the speed and transparency that you can provide either a sales or recruiting experience. And it's almost always with real-time personalized conversations that make that candidate or client feel special and unique. And this is our sort of take on the staffing tech ecosystem and where acceleration fits in that. Our friends at Bullhorn kind of laid the groundwork for this, but when you think about different steps in staffing tech ecosystem, almost every staffing agency that I know of has taken the step toward digitizing. So you think about ATS CRMs like Bullhorn for Salesforce, Target Recruit. If you're a light industrial shop, you might be using Aviante or TempWorks. You're basically collecting data and you're storing that in the cloud somewhere. Once you have that, it's important to have really strong automation and communication. And so tools like Bullhorn Automation and TextUs, Sense, to an extent, Staffing Referrals, Great Recruiters, those are all tools that are built on top of that digitized package and allow for effective communication as well as outbound marketing. Staffing Engine and tools that allow for recruitment acceleration are an additional layer over that that can help with real-time messaging and personalized conversations. And then finally, where we're seeing the trends going over the next couple of years is true business transformation via tools like Bullhorn Connect, Workin, Time Saved, all fantastic products that allow for communication with candidates in a mobile app, wherever they might be. And in fact, I think it's important to call out that, while, we see the value in the top of the funnel, qualification of candidates and customers, we definitely intend to integrate and find ways to work with those apps as well, and also effectively communicate with your labor in different ways.
Yeah, Matt, one thing just to add there, when we talk about transformation and we look at apps, you think of mobile apps, not super transformative, but the way that these apps can be structured is that all the things below it, tie into this application. And it really is a one-stop shop for these candidates to go to in a way where they don't necessarily need to sign into a bunch of different portals or, go to a bunch of different websites or, external parties, right? You can do all that stuff in the app. So it really transforms that experience and makes that candidate experience unbelievable compared to what it was in the past.
Great point.
Yeah, and so I think this what we've just been talking about there with how acceleration fits into the whole tech stack, and really this whole idea of acceleration software has already come through, in the past, and it was more in this. It was 10, 20 years ago. It was all about the dialer and cold calls, and that's a very company focused approach, right? That's trying to interrupt people in their day and just get them to answer a call. And, nobody does that anymore, right? And so now the second wave of acceleration software is coming back around, and it's customer focused, and it's using, real-time messaging and chatbots and making, connecting all these dots, like we've been saying, in a way that allows everything to, just be very easy for the customer or candidate, I should say, to quickly respond to an inquiry, quickly apply, kind of do all these different little conversational flows that we can help you set up. So
wherever they are and when they want it. I think
totally. Yeah, and I think we've been talking about real-time messaging here a little bit today, and so to break that down, there's really 4 buckets, and chatbots and live chat messaging, are what, one whole bucket, and you can use links to actual chatbots that can go out in your emails or text messages. Generally, you should also just be text messaging candidates, right? Text us, or other solutions like that are perfect for that. Internal messaging has really taken off because of COVID and more remote teams these days, and so a big part of what the acceleration software should do is also tie together all these things. So we're going to show you a little bit of how Slack and Teams get kind of introduced into this mix for your internal team to get notified of what's happening with the external stuff as well. So social messaging being the last bucket here, and that's really where you're spending money promoting yourself, promoting your staffing firm. Usually you'd have maybe a point person or two that would maybe be responding to direct messages, but you can also have it where you can have a bot there to automatically respond and then put that data into your into Bullhorn or your other database. So it's a really nice way to just basically you can use all these channels to get closer to customers, and an acceleration platform has to tie them all together and make them usable in a platform and in flows that can work in your tech stack. So
and just as a caveat, I think that these are the 4 primary channels of real-time messaging today, but we're a pretty forward-thinking group. And I know that there were, sessions that kind of touched on, interviewing candidates in the metaverse when we were at SIA Exec Forum last week. And so we're not sold that these are going to be the only methods of communication moving forward. This is what they are today. But we think that this is going to continue evolving and adapting over time. And when we think about, what a recruiting acceleration platform is, the team at Staffing Engine definitely has our own thoughts here, but there are, at least 4 key things that, we've recognized and acknowledged as being very critical. You need to have strong artificial intelligence. And if you've sat on any sessions involving AI, AI requires a tremendous amount of data to be successful. Us being a startup didn't have that on our own. So we built our platform on a really established enterprise-grade AI platform. They were just actually acknowledged as a leader in the Gartner space for enterprise communication via conversational messaging. And it's really important to have lots and lots of data so that you can translate lots and lots of different conversations. Once you have really powerful AI, you look at how you can build on top of that. And bots is a great example of that. And again, in the theme of meeting candidates where they are, you need to have bots that live on a variety of sources. So whether someone visits you on your website, whether they text a business phone number and carry out a conversation via SMS, whether they visit you on Facebook, Meta, Instagram, and want information about your agency there, bots are ultimately an extension of your brand that need to live on all of those different sources. Meeting booking is also an area that we've figured out is pretty critical. And meeting booking kind of plays in two areas. There's the individual calendars, and I'm sure that there are people attending this webinar that are familiar with the idea of Calendly and having a personalized meeting booking link that you can insert in your signature or share to people to make one-to-one booking very easily. There's also the notion of team calendaring, and that becomes very important when you're talking about artificial intelligence and recruitment acceleration. Imagine for a moment that a candidate visits you on your website, bots ask them some questions around their experience, their specialties, where they might live. And based on the answers to those questions, you can use team calendaring to route them to the right individual or team of recruiters, and then do some smart lead distribution using round robin or next recruiter up to make sure that your leads are getting distributed evenly. And that's really another key tenet and component to this. And then, how do we make ourselves, adoptable by the staffing and recruiting industry? Well, of course, integration. And today, when we say integration, we're talking about integration to core CRMs like Bullhorn and Salesforce, core collaboration tools like Slack and Microsoft Teams. But as I mentioned earlier, looking into 2022 and beyond, these tools need to integrate with real-time apps as well, because once someone becomes a worker, an employee of a staffing agency, they're probably not going back to your website for information. They're probably logging into your app, and you need to be able to meet them in that app to deliver information as well. And we're fully embracing that and expecting that. So that's a little bit about what recruiting acceleration is and how we've sort of helped define that category. What I'm most excited about now is Jay's going to take a moment and talk about how you as a staffing agency can deploy a successful acceleration strategy.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. So try and keep this very simple, break it down into 3 steps here. I know a lot of you have probably gone through very, very long implementations with your ATS companies, everything else, but I just want to let you guys know that it's pretty easy to actually get started with this. And whether you're a small 10-person staffing firm or one of the big 5, everybody has access to these types of technologies now. So Matt, go to the next slide. We'll talk about step 1 here. So, step 1 is really engaging in more conversations. And that's the way to do that is to meet candidates and clients where they are, right? We've gone through that already and looked at some of those different channels, but a really easy way to start is just adding chatbots to every page in your website, whether that's the home page, the client page, the contact us page. Those bots should be able to tailor that experience. A candidate's probably not landing on the client page unless it's by accident. So that bot should know that that person is a client and have different options or different types of copy in that message to make sure that that person's getting what they want out of that website.
It should be an extension of your brand as well.
Absolutely, an extension of your brand. We have Acme Bot, you can see there, but we have a couple customers who have all named their bots, all have different designs. So as they move into different verticals or different geographical regions, that brand follows them, and that bot also follows them as a result of that. So if we go to
this is kind of like this is like the inbound and outbound, right? Like on the left, right, there's like you want to have it on your website, you'll convert more people. You won't have, if you just have a form on your website, a certain amount of people will submit to that, but there's a whole other chunk of people that are looking for more than just to submit that and then wait for you to follow up. They want to ask quick questions and engage. Like they're kind of there and you caught them there in the moment. To not be able to engage them in a more meaningful way is a loss of a lead there. So on the website, inbound is huge, and then outbound I think is just like such a killer way to to be able to send it out, send a link, you know, in an email or an SMS, and allow people to respond back, and all that data is in back into the database. Which, yeah, so this is kind of like the inbound outbound flow here.
Yeah, if you're using an outbound automation tool, like a Herefish, or they call, or Bullhorn Automation, I should say, you can actually embed these bots that you've created in your outbound messaging, so that when it hits a passive candidate, it gives them an opportunity to qualify the fact that they're available for a job that you might have, and then engage them with a recruiter.
Yep, absolutely. And you can also do this via SMS. So whether that's more of an inbound strategy about, hey, apply now, whether it's, you know, a real call to action, or making your business line textable as well. You'd be surprised how many people actually, you know, text your main number, and, you know, never get a response back. And you can actually botify that number, so when they do text, the bot can pop up, you know, here are a few ways I can help you, and either get routed to that recruiter or that salesperson, or answer a question. Maybe it's about timesheets or payroll, and they just need to go to the website. So there's a lot of different use cases on the SMS channel. And then a more recent one, just because of COVID and how QR codes have exploded, is being able to use QR codes to launch bots. And that can be anything from, you know, think about like a light industrial firm who might maybe has QR codes posted around their lobby. So when people walk in, they can start the onboarding process on their phone, rather than, you know, waiting for a kiosk or having to, you know, wait for a recruiter to come out, or a tablet or something, and just streamlining that whole process. Or maybe you're a travel nurse firm who goes to, you know, local trade shows to meet talent, and you want to be able to just capture some information. They can scan and, you know, answer a few questions and go right into the database. Or a per diem firm who works with a facility or a couple facilities, and they want to make sure that other nurses going in there, you know, say, hey, you know, do you want better pay, better shifts? Scan here and work with us, and we can help you out. So there's a lot of different use cases for QR codes.
Yeah,
I really think we're just getting started on them too. So.
Yeah, we hear TravCon from healthcare agencies all the time. They go there to attract new providers. They have the ability to walk by, scan that, enter their information, and then the staffing agency can put them directly into their database, which is pretty powerful.
Yep. So then step 2 here is really qualifying, you know, with the bot through smart questions. Andrew touched on it earlier, but kind of the old way is someone would fill out a contact us form or a short form for an apply. You really have limited visibility there, because it's going to a shared inbox, and you're not really making sure that people are following up with that person. You also can't really capture if someone doesn't finish filling that out, right? So, you know, with a bot, if the person drops off halfway through, we can capture that, send that to the recruiter or recruiting team to make sure they follow up. But you can also go through and have them ask questions. You know, how many years of experience do you have? You know, where are you located? What's your specialty, right? And depending on how those questions are answered, you know, you can route that to the right team, to the right person, book a meeting, or even disqualify them, right? Like, we've all been there. I was a recruiter for a long time. I did IT recruiting, worked on a high level, you know, Java developer roles, and we would get truck drivers. And there's nothing wrong with truck drivers, but they're just not a fit for that particular role, right? So, but it wasted our time, because we'd have to go look at the web response and then come back. So this is really about, you know, creating priorities, making sure that candidates are being followed up with, and the recruiters are spending as much time as possible really driving revenue generating opportunities here.
I know that there's a resume upload example, but you can even give the candidate the ability to upload like a 15 to 30-second video of themselves, introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what they do, and then that will automatically upload to your core CRM.
Yeah, like that's a killer one. And then I also think the one of the best, like if the one takeaway you take from this whole thing, the best hack and flow that you can do is to have these qualifying questions, and there's tons of options like we just showed you here, and buttons and uploads and all that, and even video, but take those qualifying questions and then route them based on how they answer right to a meeting booking. That like dramatically accelerates your lead gen process. Like, you're not going from form to emails and back and forth. You're going from like qualification to directly into a meeting booked, and that's integrated with Google Calendar and Outlook, so that you're actually getting the meetings sent out and confirmed. And you know, and the recruiter didn't have to do anything. You're just booking meetings 24/7 for recruiters essentially that are qualified. So
yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Before I jump into the Connect, I think, you know, Matt and I were at SIA Healthcare, and we sat in on a session, and someone threw out the stat that just to actually get someone on the phone, it took on average 6 phone calls or emails back and forth just to set up a time. So by allowing that meeting booking link to, the person selects the time, they know that they're available. It really takes out that back and forth and speeds up the process. Even if the meeting's set a little bit further out, you know that that person's probably going to show up to that meeting because of reminders that get sent out and the ability to reschedule if needed. So, all right, so step 3 here is really the connection with that recruiters and making that a faster process. So again, with the old way, with the forms, like I said, you're probably getting that notification in a shared inbox somewhere, or it's going to 1 or 2 marketing people who then have to distribute that out. With the new way of doing things, you can actually send those leads right into your collaboration tools. So whether it's Teams, Slack, or Zoom, you can get those notifications. And again, you can send it to individuals, you can send it to teams to make sure that it's getting into the hands of the right people. And you can see the slide that Matt just went to. This is actually a live conversation now. So if someone does feel the need that they don't want to fill out a form, they actually want to connect with someone, they can say, hey, request to chat with someone live, and then actually the recruiter and salespeople can be in their collaboration tools, having a conversation back and forth with that website visitor without really having to go and learn a whole new bit of technology.
I'll steal LJ's line again with connecting the dots with bots. But again, when you think about today, agencies are living in in different areas. We are essentially helping them connect their website to their internal collaboration tool, to their ATS, and kind of making that one consolidated flow so that as things happen on your website, they're ending in your ATS. And I think that's very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, anything to add here before we kind of wrap it up?
No, yeah, just on the right. Yeah, there the transcripts, like if you do have a live chat conversation, the transcript gets, zipped up and put into the ATS. Meeting bookings get put in there. Everything should be put in there and tracked and recorded. If with something like this, where you're just enabling all these new conversations, it's all got to get back to the source of truth. So yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
Well, and then just to kind of, now that we've shown you a little bit about of product, tie it into our initial topic. But, when we think about the old way, static web forms, available only during working hours, much more transactional, we're ultimately helping staffing agencies modernize via meeting people whatever channel they're on, instantly qualifying, making sure that if a live person is not available 24/7, at least something is that can help get them the answers to questions that they have, and making it much more customer centric. That kind of ties in everything that we wanted to discuss today. I'm not sure if we have any questions in the Q&A, but either way, definitely encourage you to connect with Andrew, Jay, and myself on LinkedIn. Our emails are there. If you want to see a live example of a QR code, you can pick up your phone and scan this. It will take you to a bot that will allow you to schedule time with us. And we appreciate all of your time today. Jay, did we miss anything or have anything that we wanted to address?
No, it looks like there's no questions. Why don't we leave the page up here for a couple minutes, see if anyone does have questions at the end here, and if not, we will say goodbye and jump off.
Yeah, and while we leave this up, I know that there's going to be some Bullhorn customers who have either attended or requested the recording. We did at SIA Exec Forum last week just move into Bullhorn's marketplace officially, so we're super excited about that. I know that we've previewed engine alerts to some people. We have our first customers rolling out the beta version of that over the next few weeks. Engine alerts, if you don't know, is the real-time notification and smart lead distribution that we're building for Bullhorn customers to help move recruiters and recruiting managers out of their messy inbox with internal email notifications and bring it into a Chrome extension that will sit wherever a recruiter is. So if you think about someone who's in Bullhorn or on LinkedIn or out in Indeed, and someone applies or a submittal takes place or a placement happens, we'll alert you in real time and allow you to take action right from there. So we're super excited about it. We'll be showing it a much more established version at Engage in June now that we're in the marketplace, but very excited about that.
Awesome.
Cool. I think we've left it long enough. Thanks for attending, and I hope to see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.